Hi, everyone. This is Nick Berbulis. I'm the editor of Educational Theory. Today, we're meeting with Quentin Wheeler-Bell to talk about his paper that was published in the journal. The title is Black Support of Neoliberal School Choice and the Politics of Black Democratic Empowerment. So Quentin, thanks for meeting with us. And just to get us started, so you have a really interesting topic here, which is why Black groups or some Black groups support school choice policies or charter school policies that some might think really don't serve their interests. And the starting point of your argument is to show that the Black political view or the view among Black groups is not a homogeneous whole, and that you specifically distinguish four Black perspectives, at least four, on this issue. What you call Black egalitarians, Black disillusioned liberals, Black nationalists, and Black Marxists. And you demonstrate in your article that each of those four groups has a different take on issues of school choice and charter schools. Can you tell us a little bit more about those four groups and how they engage this issue?
Yes. Yes, and a little backstory to why I focus on the four groups is because I think in many cases, it's the assumption that Black political thought aligns with what we consider traditional American political thought, you know, the liberal or the conservative. And it's really to point out that in many ways, the Black political thought is in dialogue with that, but in dialogue in regards to the Black experience. So you get a diversity of political perspectives as it relates to interacting with sort of the American context. So you have the Black egalitarians, which are in many ways sort of the kind of liberal egalitarian perspective will focus on Black interests. You have disillusioned Blacks, which are in a sense Black egalitarians, but they just have seen the failure for so long that they don't believe that these things can be achieved. So they take more of a cynical approach. You have the Black nationalist perspective, which is sort of the building of a nation state or a state inside the United States that's representative of Black organizations, Black businesses. And then you have sort of the Black Marxist perspective, which is a Black critique of American capitalism, to say that it has to be a systematic change to both capitalism and America in order to think about Black empowerment. So it really is a dialogue between those perspectives.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And that's a very helpful set of distinctions. So say a little bit more about how each of these groups do frame the issue of school choice and charter schools from their distinct perspectives.
Yes, absolutely. So I think the thing about it is to looking at how they're trying to engage Black empowerment and what does it mean for Black empowerment in the context of systemic racism and oppression within America. And that, I think, is a very important piece because, for example, the Black egalitarians, while they may appear like liberal egalitarians, they're also thinking very carefully about what does this mean inside of systems of oppression. So that while they'll want something like equal educational opportunity, they also are far more likely to think about other alternatives beyond public schools because they're really concerned about equalizing those opportunities for Blacks, even if traditional public schools may not be the avenue. So they are more likely to support a school choice policy, but with far more regulations. Where you have the Black nationalist perspective, they are more likely to support school choice without regulations, because for Black nationalists, there's an almost complete distrust of the state because it's perceived as a white state, right? So the idea is just give us the power to control our own schools. If white people want to do that with their schools, so be it. If that creates inequalities, it's sort of like, so be it, because it's about gaining Black schools. And in many cases, the disillusioned liberals take a very similar view. They would like equal opportunity. They would like it to be fair. They just don't believe the system will be fair. So they're saying, we'll just take the second or third best option, which is a school choice option, because public schools obviously aren't working and there's no other option. So this is the best perspective. Whereas finally, the Black Marxist perspective is trying to say, yes, public schools are institutions that have reproduced systemic racism, but the market solution under school choice is not the answer either. So they're then thinking, how do you reconstruct public schools which are more democratic?
Yeah, that's fantastic, Quentin. So the subtitle of your paper is a critical theory of Black democratic empowerment. How
Yes.
does this process of studying this particular issue and these four particular points of view help to illuminate this larger project in this paper?
Yes. So one of the things on why it's both Black and democratic empowerment, right? And the democratic part is here important because part of the task of democracy is to understand people's perspectives, from my opinion, where they actually are, right? So what are the actual perspectives that they hold, why, and then understanding that. And that's why, from that perspective, I'm looking at the Black political views as formed within inside of sort of the larger Black community and Black dialogue. Now, the democratic part is to say, what are the reasonable insights in these perspectives that would lend us to see choice policy and Black empowerment in a slightly different or even radically different way than current school choice policies. Now, the empowerment piece comes in is to say that part of the task of democratic empowerment is to ensure and empower those people who've been systematically marginalized and oppressed. So when we're thinking about a policy for schools, it's what are the ways in which we can think about that systematic oppression, but democratically empower the community. So now they have more control over the school, the organization, and the resources. And that becomes the empowerment piece, is thinking strategically about giving Blacks more democratic control over their schools.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Quentin. Thank you for that. So it occurs to me that you have here sort of a framework or a methodology. Here in this paper, you're applying it to the issues of school choice and charter schools,
Yes.
things that are generally seen as relatively conservative or neoliberal policy
Yes.
reforms. But it does seem to me that this methodology might also be mobilized to look at other sorts of school policy issues, segregated schools, busing, et cetera, where the same four categories or perspectives might also illuminate distinct Black perspectives of different ways of engaging that particular policy issue or controversy.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And in other papers I've written about thinking about segregation and integration, thinking about how we think about urban poverty and what I call the dark ghetto. And it's to say that there is a distinct Black conversation that is occurring that lends itself to different outlooks. So for example, the integration debate that occurs in education, oftentimes what misses in that debate is the larger debate for that Blacks argue for separation. That would be the Black nationalist perspective, and for transformation, right? That would be the Black Marxist perspective. And to say, once we see that, then the options that are available to us become more diversified than sometimes the very limited view that is framed when it's just in the egalitarian framework of, does this enhance or undermine equal educational opportunity?
Yeah, really interesting. And it also occurs to me that this is a corrective of sorts of a certain kind of paternalism, if you want to call it that, that assumes a sort of homogeneity of Black perspectives on some of these issues, or a single Black view of what is in Black students or Black children's interests. Whereas in fact, there's an active dialogue, as you say, between quite distinct positions that don't all line up on exactly the same side of some of these controversial issues.
You're absolutely right. And so on a personal level, this article and others that I've written started from feeling like philosophy was talking down to me, right? They would talk about African-American issues, race, and they would talk in a way that I would think, that's not the dialogue I grew up with. That's not the conversation. Where is the conversation that I grew up with being brought to sort of philosophical light? And I just felt like the assumption was if you're Black, you should feel this way, or
Mhm.
you should view the world this way. You should value equal educational opportunity.
Mhm.
And if you don't, then it was you haven't thought hard enough about the concept. And
Yeah.
if you did, you would really believe it. And I always thought that had this paternalistic air to it in
Yeah.
philosophy.
Sure. Quentin, thank you very much for this conversation. I do want to urge people to read your paper. It's a really interesting paper, and I think you've done a great job of sort of giving us the overview of what you're arguing in this project. I encourage people to look at the essay to get the fuller version of your argument. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, great.